Welcome back, everybody, to the new Full of Fail Army update for the first week of September 2019. There's not much on the plate for this week, but there are some great news articles that we will cover. For starters, did you know that the Viveport now supports the Valve Index and owners get 2 free months of Infinity? Also, praise be to the great gaming gods, as BeatSaber got the new official soundtrack Volume 3 with one of my favorite bands from the EDM world, the Pegboard Nerds. More on that. Also, we're going to talk about the live streaming event app called NextVR, which has been around for a while on a few platforms, including the PSVR, and now it looks like it's coming to more platforms, that is, with a gigantic roadmap that we will try to cover in this news briefing. Also, we have a list of some of the best games to look out for 2019 on PSVR that will be coming out by the end of the year. And two of the top that, in my mind, are equally tied for the top placing spot in my heart is, of course, the Iron Man VR and Gorn. Yes, Gorn. One of the great PC VR titles that has been around for a long time, and I have been desperately and patiently waiting for it to come to PSVR platform, as I knew it would, is finally going to come out by the end of the year. That's right, Gorn. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, me and your mum are totally disappointed. Also, we have talked about Space Junkies before, developed by the AAA studio Ubisoft, and now it looks like, well, Ubisoft has thrown in the towel. We did cover before that they are making a non-VR version that was in beta to coincide with the VR platform version, to widen the audience, and now that it looks like that has been cancelled. Never coming out of beta, and it looks like there will be no more further updates. And the reason for that is, rolling right on to the next news article, it looks like Ubisoft is now hiring for an unannounced AAA VR project based on a great IP. What this means to me is that it looks like they're starting those two, I want to say unannounced, but they kind of already let the cat out of the bag with both of them, Splinter Cell and Assassin's Creed VR projects. They sort of did definitely show the world the Splinter Cell concept or demo, I want to say, I don't know, where you're in a kayak. I'll never look at a kayak the same. Doing some stealth infiltration mission. And then, of course, Assassin's Creed, well, that could be anything. Just please, please, please let it not be, like an eagle flight thing. Anyway, we have talked about Borderlands 2 and how it's been very well received on the PSVR platform. And of course, the PC users have been clamoring that they want a piece of that pie. And now it looks like finally announced by Gearbox Studios is that there will be a VR coming to the PC. The VR version will be coming to the PC platform. Also, alongside this announcement, it looks like the PSVR will be getting all that missing DLC here on September 6th. Also, we have some news from Carbon Studio, the creators of The Wizards, back in 2019, which was a great game, but unfortunately just turned out to be sort of a wave or horde shooter. Now they've taken all that feedback and they have announced The Wizards Dark Time. Dark Times. And they've definitely made sure that this is now an actual RPG experience. We will be discussing that. Also, we have looks like some feedback from a preview on Iron Man from both Gamescom and PAX, that just wrapped up. And also, it looks like Wargaming, which has been experimenting with virtual reality and augmented reality for its series in Europe, has finally announced that World of Tanks VR will be coming into location-based VR arcades in the coming weeks, if not next week. And also, finally on our list, is something I've been wanting to talk about. From the creators of the Exorcist Legion VR comes Hotel R&R. Now, this is interesting, and you might think those two have no connection whatsoever besides the development studio, but it turns out that in Hotel R&R, you are great, not great, actually, you are a failed 80s rock superstar, and you die. Yeah. I don't know about the details, but my suspicion is overdose. And then you get sent to hell, and you make a deal with the devil, fitting. And then you get sent back up, and of course your retribution is to destroy all and any hotel rooms you come across. Very interesting premise there. I have to say I love it. And of course there's scoring. You get to spend your hard-earned score points, cash, I don't know what you spend in hell, but you spend it in hell for new weapons and gadgets, gizmos, and destructibility. Is that even a word? We're making it a word. Destructibility items you can then use for your rampage, your stress relief, your fun sexy time, whatever you really want to do with it. But it looks like it's finally there from the team of Wolf and Wood, coming soon to you. Don't mind the man behind the curtain. It's really early, and I'm coming down off a major hangover. So, welcome to the Full of Fail Army experience. Just cue the rest of it. Come on, man. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for staying past the intro, and we're just going to get right into it. So this first bit of news comes to you thanks to Valve Index and, of course, the Viveport. HTC announced last week that the Viveport, the company's digital distribution platform for the VR games, now supports the Valve Index. Much like the previous promotion for the Oculus Rift, Valve Index owners will be able to redeem 2 free months of Viveport Infinity, the platform's Netflix-style subscription service that lets you play any and all participating games for a low monthly fee. Throughout the month of September, both new and existing Viveport Infinity members who own a Valve Index can redeem 2 free months of Infinity, which includes periodic discounts on games as well as access to premium Viveport video content. HTC, the Valve Index members, will gain access to hundreds of top-rated VR titles, including, but not limited to, Ninja Legends, A Fisherman's Tale, Apex Contract, Fuji, Gun Club, Angry Birds VR, and I Expect You to Die. To activate your free trial, simply head or Google to the Viveport download page. Make sure your index is plugged in and turned on once you've booted up Viveport. And if I understand if you might have heard a few bad things about this, but you might want to check again. It's been 3 years since it launched, and there's been a lot of updates, and there's nothing better than 2 free months of this service for you to decide for yourselves. Remember, this is 2019, there's a lot of disinformation out there, as well as a lot of trolls. So, please, if you have this platform, I should say this peripheral, try the platform and check it out for yourselves. Make your own intellectual assessment and judgment, and then see if this is right for you. If anything else comes out of this, or any other news updates for the Viveport or Index, be sure to check back with us, as we will undoubtedly have some information for you. Next. And as we continue on with our news updates, we'd like to talk about Beat Games and of BeatSaber fame, of course. And for those of you who don't know, which is very hard to believe, Beat Games is a studio behind the wildly popular and successful block-smashing rhythm game BeatSaber, released in 2018 for all major headsets, including the PSVR. As of August 29th, they released a free update that brings with it, 6 new playable tracks as well as a slew of update features. Some of these new tracks are by artists, and I'm sorry for probably butchering these names, Yaroslav Beck and Jan Islovsky featuring Nutrix, as well as Morgan Page, very good, and some of our favorite EDM artists, Pegboard Nerds. Some of the other artists are by Pixel, Slippy, and Boom Kitty. And of course, as you know, Boom Kitty is related to Boom Chicken. Yes, we just made that up, but again, it was in the script. Sorry. So, before jumping into some block smashing fun, if you have not tried this, which is hard to believe, if you have VR, you can also preview and download or stream the official soundtrack Volume 3, which is this update is titled, from multiple services including Apple Music, Google Music, Amazon, Spotify, and more. As well as this new track update, there, like I said, were a few feature updates, including, but not limited to, color scheme customization for things like the notes, sabers, obstacles, and lights, as well as a level environment override, more precise swing angle detection, improved lighting, some tweaked note jumpstart positions for the Xbox Plus difficulty, and some minor fixes in like What the Cat beat maps and a few others, as well as, minor things like bug fixes or two. if you're into that sort of thing, which we are. If you really would like a cardiovascular, and we do mean serious cardiovascular workout, you should check out BeatSaber. And if you already have BeatSaber, this is $3.99 and perfect to add to your collection. So we highly recommend that you do. Okay, so as we roll right along with this week's update, we're going to talk about NextVR, which is a platform/application that we have never talked about before, which we should have, to be all right and be honest. So NextVR, which is the VR live streaming events app, is now available for Oculus Quest. It was only available previously to the Oculus Venues app, but now it has its own standalone application. And it is of course free, which is said to come alongside a new update that has new technology that promises clear and sharper video rendering. The studio calls the new rendering technology PAVE, or PAVE, which is said to enable new features like enhanced experience graphic overlays such as stats and instant replays. Also, there is forthcoming multi-user or multiplayer interaction such as game trivia during timeouts and commercials. That's very fun because now that means you do not have to go to your nearest pub to have fun to interact with your favorite sports team. Previously, the NextVR content was only available on Quest. Now, this provides a new communal viewing effort, which is of course select real-time live events. Also, in contrast, the NextVR app is a single user experience that also provides replays and extra content too. This new rendering technology in partnership with Oculus Quest is to provide an outstanding fan experience. And don't let it go wrong with you, because in addition to the Quest support, the studio is also adding exclusive Best on Quest, or I should say a Best on Quest channel, with a curated group of new and optimized experiences, among which is the NBA Finals Game 6 highlights, with access to the Toronto Raptors locker room celebration, as well as NHRA drag racing, and day-to-night time-lapse on selected concerts. Now, for those of you who don't know, including the new venue, or I should say platform, the NextVR's supported availability comes on, of course, Oculus Quest, as well as Samsung VR, PSVR, Google Daydream, Windows VR headsets, Oculus Go, Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, and Valve Index. And they also released a lineup, or I should say a calendar or schedule, for the next 30 days of August 2019, and which you can check out at nextvr.com/schedule. And they have such things as, concert updates, as well as let's see, the UCB Comedy Magic Club, live from Gotham Comedy Club, So Far Sounds, let's see, Paranormal Evidence, Live Music Now, World of Dance from Dallas, the Brouhaha Comedy, and a slew of others, including, as aforementioned, Best of NHRA, the Best of NBA Finals. And again, because this is $3.99, we highly recommend you check this out. Get, as we mentioned in the previous article, get, a good assessment and judgment for yourself. But we have checked this out on a few of concerts and the sporting events, including the one of the finals where, the Warriors, excuse us, sorry, we had to think there for a second, did a smashing victory in one of the NBA Finals. And because the cameras were able to switch and the one was right behind the net, it was a smashing experience to behold indeed. So we highly recommend this application. Check it out for yourself. As we would like to continue our news article for this week, we're going to talk about the top PSVR titles to look out for by the end of 2019. This is in no particular order, but most, if not all of these, are definitely items you should keep an eye out for. Starting with a title we have talked about several, and I do mean several times, Aspire 1 VR Operative. Judging by the reaction online, Aspire 1 VR VR operative is what most of us are looking forward to before the year's end. That, of course, does not include me and the people who are excited for Gorn and or Iron Man VR, but this is still a tough contender. This VR stealth game is essentially Metal Gear Solid 2 in VR, presenting players with this dizzying amount of options to sneak around levels unseen. It's basically shaping up nicely, and we haven't seen it yet on PSVR. The Quest version is looking awfully good, so our hopes are high. And this is out September 27th and 2019, which is, you know, about 3-4 weeks away. Also, for those of you looking for more narrative-driven VR experience, Doctor Who: The Edge of Time is basically a great VR animated short in the world of Doctor Who. And this is now time for the main event. Developer Maze Theory is working now and totes that the world of Who, where you will travel to different times and meet iconic villains and solve puzzles in search of the Doctor herself. Also, another title that we have recently covered, which turned out to be not vaporware, Golem. Since 2015, Golem, it's hard to believe that it's actually coming out. This debut project from former Bungie developers at Highwire Games was announced before the PSVR itself had even been released, again back in 2015. It was due to launch in early 2018 before a last-minute delay saw it sink into oblivion. No, we're not talking about the game. But we now know that it's coming out this fall. No hard date given, but, well, we want to trust them. We remain as intrigued by its first-person sword combat and unique story as ever, so let's hope it measures up to our expectations. Now, one of the titles I have been patiently and eagerly awaiting for since its debut on PC is, of course, Gorn. Yes, Gorn. No, not that. The G-O-R-N. Get your dirty mind out the gutter. The PS version of Free Live's Bloody Gladiator Sim is in the works for release later this year. Of course, on PC, Gorn is one of the VR's most brilliantly over-the-top and lovable games, offering pure carnage as you whack, slice, and stab your way through waves of meat-headed goons. In fact, this and, Blade and Sorcery is one of the top games on Steam VR that I know of, next to Sargento, which of course just recently released on PSVR as well. Also, one of the next titles that has gotten phenomenally endorsements, rave reviews, and high expectations from gamers, including people working on the project alike, is Iron Man VR. Iron Man VR feels like it's something of a technical miracle. Despite the PSVR's limited tracking, the game does a pretty fantastic job of letting players spin around as you zoom about skylines, blasting enemies out to the sky and air. In fact, there's a predictive algorithm that allows the tracking of the motion controllers even when it is not on screen, since there is only one camera positional tracking for the PSVR. As we have only seen a very small portion of what we're told is a full adventure with its own story, Iron Man VR is definitely coming out this year and shaping up to be a high contender for one of the greatest games on PSVR thus yet. We're hoping to find out much more about it in the very near future, and of course we will be divulging those secrets as they come available. Also, another title, if not most of all of these that we've talked about before, that we are going to announce here, is of course Groundhog Day. Yeah, I know that was a horrible attempt by what was in the original film, but you can suck it. This is a sequel to Groundhog Day book, which then became a movie in 1993, starring Bill Murray, where you are Phil Connors in VR. And it's probably not what you might thought you'd be getting out of your VR headset this year, but nevertheless, Like Father, Like Son, which is entitled, is definitely shaping up to be one of the most genuinely promising narrative VR games on the horizon right now, and is looking to combine story and interaction in meaningful ways. Some of the entertaining mini games strewn about along the way includes a lot of, puzzle mini games as well as intrigue. And as you know, and as we've covered before, what happens in Punxsutawney stays in Punxsutawney, no matter how many 400, 500, or 1,000 days may go in between. Also, another title we just recently talked about and covered was The Walking Dead Onslaught. Now, if you couldn't tell, VR tie-ins are coming thick and fast for this in recent times as of late, since Gamescom. Servios, which has a very well, as we've mentioned before, pedigree in the VR world, has more than proven itself capable in handling the expectations of series. For example, like Creed and Westworld, most recently, which we just did recently cover as well. However, with that in mind, we're looking forward to seeing what the team can bring in the medium with its first linear, narrative-driven VR shooter. Also, take note that this is the first shooter that they have released since Raw Data, which was also still great, but a while back. This is also, again, set during the events of the show between seasons 8 and 9, so if you're very recently up to date with the show, don't look to see what is happening be reflected in the game, as again, this is only between seasons 8 and 9. Next on the list is, of course, budget cuts. Now, we would like to say that Aspire 1, which was at the top of the list, was not the only stealth game on PSVR releasing this year. A port of last year's very popular VR indie hit Budget Cuts is due out to arrive on Sony's headset. In Budget Cuts, for those of you who don't know, you are about to sneak through office cubicles, dodging enemy robots, and occasionally tossing a knife or two, their way. The PC version of the game had a lot of issues when it first released. However, this is a, more completed version with all updates in place, and hopefully that will be able to shine through in the PSVR, world. More on that as it comes through. Second to last on our list here is Final Assault. Any developer, Phaser Walk Interactive has been in VR for some time, and Final Assault is one of its most polished and best releases titles to date. On PC, this rewarding VR real-time strategy with incredibly detailed visuals and fun multiplayer modes has shined through and through with a lot of testimonials. We know that the game is making its way over to PS4/PSVR later this year, and we're hoping that it holds up across the board. Not much else is known about this, as it was a very recent announcement, but we are looking to find out whatever we can, and we'll deliver that news to you when we get it. Last but certainly not least is the first-party version, or first-party title, Concrete Genie. Concrete Genie is a tale of bullying and companionship that holds a lot of promise, but we're just as interested to check out the VR version of it as well, as it is different from the main game. The PSVR offerings of the game has 2 different VR modes at launch, which means maybe more to come. One of it is featuring its own mini-campaign, and another that lets you just basically wield a PlayStation Move controller as a spray can to paint your own heart's content. That sounds interesting, and we will be very interested to see how the game translates into the PSVR when it launches on October 8th. So that has to wrap it up for those PSVR titles to look out for by the end of 2019. If anything else drops for these or any other news tidbits, we will definitely let you know. Hi everyone, we are going to talk now about a title that we have talked about before, Space Junkies. In fact, the last time we talked about it was about the non-VR version of Space Junkies that was currently in beta. Ubisoft decided to try to grow the audience by creating a non-VR version of the game that is playable online with VR platforms. Sorry, had a bit to drink. But it looks like that an update last week marked the end of development for the Zero Grav VR shooter. Since launch earlier this year, the game has received several updates adding new maps, modes, and more. However, Ubisoft Montpellier said it was proud to have achieved what it set out to do. If by, coming in half-assed and then, giving up is what you set to do, well done. Not throwing shade at stones, but, that's exactly what happened, and they seem proud of it. The game's servers, they said, will remain open and accessible to players who purchase the VR version of Space Junkies so that spacers can continue to take on each other in the many community tournaments we've seen since launch. That's about it. In case you don't know, in Space Junkies, up to 4 players jumped into an arena-style deathmatch in zero gravity. In the VR world, that's actually quite fun. The game had an arcade influence that separated it from similar titles like Echo VR and the like. Interesting, Ubisoft Montpellier also confirmed that the non-VR version of Space Junkies, again, will not be releasing or ever coming out of beta. The studio launched the beta for the standard version back in July, and we did cover that as well. No reason was given for why the non-VR version has been effectively cancelled, but we have a sneaking suspicion. Again, this does not mean that Ubisoft is done with VR. It was and we're going to roll right along into the next news article, which has to do directly with this. Ubisoft announced a AAA VR project based on a great IP. In fact, they are hiring for it. It's on their page. The company has currently 9 high-level listings related to the project in Dusseldorf, Germany. One for a senior game designer role that states successful applicants will work on cutting-edge VR technology on one of Ubisoft's great IPs developed across multiple studios. Now that is very exciting. Now see, again, we have talked about that they did let the cat out of the bag with the Splinter Cell sort of demo, tech demo, whatever you want to call it. And actually a Ubisoft spokesperson issued this following statement. We are working on the next VR escape room for 2020, as well as a AAA VR project for which we are currently hiring. That was very vague, but sounds very interesting at the same time. Interestingly, Ubisoft is also hiring a lead character artist for a VR project in Newcastle, UK, and it is not clear if this is the same project or something else. However, they're looking to hire. Now, this is where things sort of take a turn for the Splinter Cell enthusiasts/fans. Listings appear amid reports that Ubisoft is developing not just 1 but 2 VR games, this is not including the escape room, based on its IPs. The first is reportedly the Splinter Cell VR, marking return of the long lost and loved stealth series. Also, an Assassin's Creed VR game is apparently in the works. If the reports are true, these games will be exclusive to the Oculus headsets. Recently, Ubisoft CEO said that expect Splinter Cell on different devices. So, this is pretty interesting. Don't also forget that Ubisoft has, a lot of VR games. Back in 2016, they launched titles like Eagle Flight, The Werewolves Within. And then later down the line, one of my favorites is Star Trek Bridge Crew, which I have several videos of. And then, of course, most recently was Space Junkies. And the recent rumors turn out to be true. We could see at least one Ubisoft VR game announced at Oculus Connect later this month. That's about really it. Sounds kind of cool. La 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 la. Alright, so as we're moving on to some of the interesting news articles that we have for this week, even though they may be short, they are plentiful and awesome. So what we are talking about now happens to do with Gearbox's land-ship title IP, Borderlands. Borderlands 2 came out on PSVR late 2018, I want to say. I know I was about to fail there, but it was on the tip of my tongue, right next to the vodka. But the company announced that during PAX West in Seattle this last weekend, the news was confirmed that during its showcase at the event, the PC VR version of the loot and shoot game will arrive sometime before the end of the year. Also, and on that note, all VR DLC has been confirmed, both yes for the PC upon launch, but even sooner for the PSVR. That is right. As of September 6th, you will have all of the DLC, and it is the update called the Badass Mega Fun, or BAMF for short. It includes each of the game's major expansions, including Captain Scarlet, her pirate's booty, Mr. Talk's campaign of college, Sir Hammerlock's big game hunt, and Tiny Tina's assault on Dragon Keep. There's also the new character classes added over the course of the DLC, including the Mechromancer and my lovable twin, the Psycho. All of this DLC will be included in the PC version of the game, as we said. Gearbox has not specified which headsets of the game will be supported natively on the PC, but other published titles like Trove Save the Universe have launched on both Steam and Oculus stores. So it's a good bet that this will too. There might have been a lot of issues with Borderlands VR upon launch. However, ever since the 2018 release, Gearbox has definitely addressed a lot of those issues at this point. Still, there is one main thing, is the lack of co-op gameplay, which is sort of a stinger in, your bird. But that's kind of what, the Borderlands series is all about. There has been mum on the word if any co-op or multiplayer additions will be added to the VR or PC VR version. However, Borderlands 3 is releasing shortly after the PSVR DLC on September 13th. It doesn't look like the game will support VR at launch, but hopefully we might get an update or version later down the line. That's very exciting indeed. Good on to you, Gearbox. Well done indeed. We will definitely be picking up Borderlands 3, but we will also be making a journey back to Pandora for Borderlands 2 on all DLC, and we will be joining my half-brother, the Psycho. Aha! We actually might be doing a stream on that, so check with us back later. Make sure you subscribe, by the way. The next news item on our list this week has to do with Carbon Studios, and of course for those of you that remember, back in 2018, Carbon Studio was the lovely developer that created The Wizards. And basically virtual reality, this was an awesome gesture-based casting, virtual reality, I want to say RPG experience. However, the main downside was that it was feeling of merely being an advanced wave shooter, locking you into locations or specific, positions in those locations to kill a set number of monsters before moving on, much like a wave or horde shooter. The studio has taken all of this feedback on board for its next installment in the franchise, lovingly named The Wizard's Dark Times. And of course, while looking the part, this is definitely new. While keeping some of the fan favorites, there's also new things to do and explore. For example, it now has maybe possibly some linear parts, but definitely more areas for expanding, exploring, but I want to say expanding gameplay. Also, don't forget that now this game is more dynamic and enjoyable to play. Just as in titles such as, The Mage's Tale or The Witching Tower, there's now more to pay attention to with fewer, lull moments when you're wandering around or simply heading to the next activation point. As with any video games, especially in virtual reality featuring spells and incantations, the Dark Times is all about the magic. All those gesture-based spells for attacking and defending are still there, but now they've been improved. For the fireball, it's now just a flick of the wrist. For the shield, it's just basically a hand motion across your chest. So that obviously means there might be a little bit of much arm waving when the enemy gets too close, but hey, I love to wave a lot. Yeah. There's also greater depths to spells. So for example, the ice arrow returns, where you can once again fire 5 before recasting. Now also 2 direct hits will freeze an enemy. Plus, the bow you're using can actually be broken and split into 2 for making it dual-wielding swords for close combat. Now there are also combination effects. So basically freeze a monster, then defrost them with a fireball. As they might be dripping wet, use a nasty lightning spell to, basically cook their toast. Also cue evil laughter there. This especially churns things around for the title and makes new things interesting. Well, obviously, but you know what I meant. From what's been shown, The Wizard's Dark Times is definitely on track to offer an even more engaging experience than before. The spellcasting works well, the environments look great, and there's more to explore than ever. The monsters obviously decently put up a fight, so hopefully things are not only going to get better, but just as long as there's a hefty campaign or enough hours of gameplay to back it up. I will try to link this into the comments or the description for anyone who wants to check it out, but it's definitely looking to come along nicely. No announcement on what platforms this will be releasing on, but just as we suspected since the Wizard release on all major headsets, this will be coming to both PC and PSVR. Who knows, maybe with the updated graphics and timeline, this might come out on the PSVR too. And now we are going to get to the meat and potatoes of one of our news articles, that being Iron Man VR. So whether or not you are a comic book fan, there's no denying that the fact of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or MCU for those noobs, has shaped the modern cinema universe ever since the first Iron Man movie over 10 years ago in 2008. There have been several video game tie-ins trying to milk the brand and for the most part have felt lackluster, definitely failing to grab the energy and excitement of being Tony Stark in the world's most famous suit of armor. Cue Iron Man stage left and awesome music. Now, thanks to virtual reality's unique ability to put you inside the suit, Iron Man VR on PSVR could very well be the benchmark for future superhero video games. Now, First announced back in March 2019 and exclusive to the PlayStation VR, developer Camouflage demoed the title at recent Gamescom in Cologne, Germany, and the queues, or lines, for you wankers, certainly testified to the fans' interest. Basically, there was only a 10 to 15 minute demo which served as an opening tutorial, giving the players a chance to test out various flight modes and weapon controls. Set outside Stark's LA home for the first couple of movies, and by far and away the most important aspect to get the right was flight. Thankfully, the studio has gotten most of this right from the first impressions and a lot of the feedback. There's, an interesting predictive algorithm as well for the motion controller's tracking, since many of you may know the PSVR's ability to track using only one stationary camera. It can be a pain when, say, your back is turned, which they actually don't recommend, or when you're, even facing the side. You lose tracking on one controller, everything else is just bollocks. However, again, thanks to a predictive algorithm, they have smoothed out a lot of the edges, and it's made for some great gameplay, according to a lot of the feedback. Also, just so you know, the flight motion is very comfortable due to using the hand-mounted thrusters, and I should say gestures. Only those who really suffer terrible nausea may be affected. There's the weapon systems, which have been great, using sort of like the onboard AI, which has you just looking at the enemies you wish to track, and then using hand or motion gestures to then launch your awesome array of weapons. There was skill when you were trying to fly and operate weapons at the same time, and this is where the Iron Man VR started to shine through and through. Basically, flying across the top of the ocean, dipping in and out of rock formations while blasting away at enemies was exactly the kind of experience fans of the characters have been seeing in movies and looking for in the games. It was also sort of like a thrust punch mechanic that dashed you forward with a devastating blow when you came close enough. Iron Man VR has already created plenty of buzz and excitement thanks to the possibility it'll be a fully fledged video game rather than the short demo experience like Spider-Man Far From Home, and it's certainly justified from what has been seen so far. With a launch still expected in 2019, Iron Man VR could be very well one of PlayStation VR's biggest hits, and that actually says quite a lot. It's done very well. I haven't seen anything out of PAX, but Gamescom, which was before PAX, has this great feedback, and a lot of people really liked it, so who knows, we might see this on our shelves come holiday 2019. Okay, on the second to last news article for this week, we'd like to talk a bit about wargaming. And for those of you that have actually no clue what we're talking about, wargaming, which is a very successful studio behind, ships of war, tanks of war, and there's one more, right? Something to do with planes or birds, something in the sky. Mice of war, that's right, we got it. Wargaming has been experimenting with virtual reality and augmented reality versions of the popular MMO World of Tanks for several years now, most notably launching World of Tanks VR as a location-based entertainment experience in Russia last year. And here in the next week or two, the video game will be rolled out into VR arcades worldwide using the Synthesis VR distribution platform. We have covered Synthesis before. We took quite a few shots at it, rightly deservedly so, only because of the things that they said, that they offer that were never around before, which we call bollocks on. However, it is still very useful to have to play with the game, right? Yeah. Anyway. World of Tanks VR was created specifically for the LBE market, that is location-based experience market, featuring specific motion controller support so players can drive, aim, shoot these war machines quickly and fluidly. Arcades will be able to offer 2 to 4 multiplayer battles with 3 tanks. I'm not going to list those tanks because it's just a bit of numbers and digits. This offers its own strategic advantages and disadvantages available at launch. Again, we're just going to get into some numbers and digits here. Let's see, there are deathmatch, team deathmatch modes to choose from, realistic maps, as well as they can be anyway, and as well as for the VR Synthesis mentioned, all LB VR operators will have access to license to World of Tanks VR without a subscription to Synthesis. That's interesting. So that makes World of Tanks VR available to every arcade, non-exclusive of the management software. Wow, well done indeed. When people first tested this out, there was a lot of feedback saying it's a very much simplified experience, designed less for the passion of tanks and more for the thrill of battle, which is probably what you need. tank operation is not an easy feat, despite what you might have seen in the cinema and or films. Distributed directly through Synthesis VR's content delivery network, World of Tanks VR will be made available to hundreds of arcades across the globe. Wow, Friday the 13th. Really? Friday the 13th? They went with Friday the 13th on that one. Okay. Well, to celebrate the launch, the companies will be hosting a World of Tanks VR Global Arcade Invasion Day featuring competitions and prize giveaways. For further updates on this, please check out the World of Tanks VR webpage. Or, just, at your leisure, come back to us, and if there's anything else that comes out of this, we will let you know. Okay, rounding out the last bit of news for our news update this week comes with a very interesting and unique title we have not seen or heard for before, called Hotel R&R. Now, this is very interesting. It is coming from the developers Wolf and Wood, the epic team behind the horror series The Exorcist Legion VR. The team has melded classic rock folklore with that urge to just break stuff. Yeah, put on some Limp Bizkit, mate. Supposedly, all the great stars of that era signed some sort of deal with the devil to become rich and famous. What? Does anyone have his number? Anyway. That just so happens to be where Hotel R&R kicks off, with you playing a failed rock musician who just didn't have the skills and ends up in hell. Very vague. We'd like to know how that happened. Anyway, one quick signature later and you're back up with one mission. Break a lot of stuff. That just sounds like fun, doesn't it? The premise behind Hotel R&R, is really simple. You grab a bottle, smash it on the floor. Maybe pick up a toaster, hurl it out the window. Basically, take whatever you can find and make sure none of it looks like it did when you arrived. When you leave, you basically just try to rack up as big of a bill as you can by the end as possible, which is the scoring gauge. Each level has several challenges to accomplish, which will then unlock the next hotel. Just be prepared for plenty of repetition. But hey, if you want me to repeat breaking stuff for fun and scoring, well, that's something I can get behind. The first couple of goes are great fun. You can try to work out what you can actually achieve, what you can interact with, what's destructible, how destructible it is, and then of course from there it sort of goes on. Also, don't worry, because Hell has a handy pawn shop apparently. So in between rounds you spend your cash. Alright. You spend your cash in Hell for useful items like boxing gloves, baseball bats, and work your way up to some C4 or a shotgun. The better items and the more, exuberant the cost. So that first hotel room start to, feel real familiar as you maybe destroy it for the 50th time. But when you come back with, a fish in one hand and C4 in the other, things can let your imagination run wild. I don't know. I just, yeah. So basically, this title is still in early access and available on the PC, I want to say, in Steam Store. Tracking seems to be an issue. There's also some inconsistency when stuff breaks, or I should say doesn't break, apparently, according to feedback. For instance, one user said lobbing a vase across the room, there's about a 50-50 chance of it breaking while ripping clothes off. But, yeah, just forget I said all that. Anyway, sorry, we're just excited to get to the end here. Apparently, I just got a phone call from my editing buddy, my friend, saying that some of the audio is not being synced with some of the video. So I must apologize there. It's not all me. It's not all vodka and prawn. Remind me to clean the keyboard and mouse. Anyway, Hotel R&R's mindless virtual destruction is most brazen and chaotic. Wolf and Wood offers players a very good VR title, and what a VR title should be is fun. Lots of interactivity that gets you moving, immersing you in a digital world that can almost seem real. If it's real enough, we're still talking about the game, not prawn, right? Yeah. It isn't perfect by any means, and certainly isn't one of the, puzzle aficionado games out there, but, don't discount Hotel R&R's devilishly good gameplay too quick. There might be coming a lot more coming out of this here soon, again, since it is only in early access. Hopefully we might see this come to consoles later on. If not, well, it's time to, you know, rack up that Oculus and or Index if you can't afford it. Just make sure you have the proper rig for it first. Also, and on that note, here at FoFA Army, we would like to say thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of us. Wait, you're a part of me? Wait, where are you at on me? Get off! Get off! Anyway, we would like to continue this more, and I know we're actually a little bit behind on this update, but I promise that it will be a weekly thing, and it will be. In fact, I will try to get it out sooner next week. So, please make sure you stay hydrated, stay fit, make sure to walk your dog, pet your cat, listen to your mum. You know, I wasn't kidding when we said we were disappointed, so you have a lot of stuff to make up for, young lad.